Hello everybody, I'm Ard, and welcome back to another episode of Minecraft Enigmatica 2 Expert. As you can see, I'm starting to flatten the land to prepare to build the base that I promised you I would last episode. While I'm doing that, perhaps we should talk about something I really didn't discuss in the first episode, and that's, what is Enigmatica 2 and why am I choosing to play this over something else? So Enigmatica 2 is a Minecraft 1.12 mod, which is not the current version. It doesn't have things like the honeybees or a lot of the other newer features like the new nether that currently exist in Minecraft. It is an older pack. There are newer versions of it up through Enigmatica 6, but none of them have an expert version. The expert version is very quest and progress heavy and ties together a whole bunch of mods in a way that handholds you through them to teach you how to use them and how to thread them into more and more convoluted and complex things. The author did a very, very good job of threading this together in a way that makes sense, in a way that leads to an actual, almost natural progression through the packs. It is also a very exploration-heavy one that rewards looking around and finding things, much like where I was excited where I thought I had found the Californium to make an early nuclear reactor. Well, I didn't, but that does exist. There's also a handful of a bunch of other small items you can find that make things a lot easier and will speed up your progress. It's probably my second favorite mod pack behind an even older one called Regrowth, where it's a very similar situation where it teaches you how to play things and threads things together to rebuild a world from a wasteland. In this case, we're working with a relatively normally spawned world, but it does a lot of the same stuff. It gives you constant tasks to do while leaving the door open to build things in any way you actually want to. Animatica is also one of the few mod packs I've run into that doesn't mistake the concept of progression for tedium. It does not go out of its way to be super grindy in a lot of the ways that some other mod packs do by adding things like Primal Core, which dramatically increases just the time it takes to build even your first iron set of tools, much less anything else. It has a much more natural and progressive flow that it and Regrowth kind of do the same sort of thing that I really enjoy, where it goes from a starvation of resources to a massive overabundance of resources really pretty quickly. Like you do not have things until all of a sudden you have basically an infinite amount of things. And it works out pretty well so that you don't end up having to spend all of your time just sitting there in a mine for hours and hours and hours on end. Anyhow, I'm going to finish up leveling land here, and I'll get back to you guys shortly, and then we can start building the base. And now that we've got the land flattened, we can actually probably start the build. But to do that, we probably should discuss what we're going to do for look and feel of the base, and all of the various options we have to do it, because there are numerous different options we can use within this mod pack to enhance the look and feel and just get different textures and shapes and sizes that we wouldn't have otherwise. The first thing we're going to look at is the Architect's Saw Bench from ArchitectureCraft, which lets you turn blocks into all sorts of other random shaped pieces that you normally can't do inside Minecraft, like fence railings, balcony railings. What we're probably going to use it for are window frames, which I think look really good with the pieces we're going to use. And the thing that it excels at that you can't get in normal Minecraft are rounded pieces. I'm not going to use them in my current build because I'm actually building more of like a rustic type cabin, because the bulk of the materials I have right now are primarily aimed at, wood and logs and stone. So that's what I'm going with for the initial build, and that's kind of what we're at on this one for that. The next piece we're going to look at is the Chisel Bits mod, primarily the diamond bit saw from it, which allows you to basically cut blocks in half and shade them into smaller and smaller pieces as we go. You can do it vertically or horizontally. You can slice them into micro blocks up to 8 pieces across to make them smaller and smaller. We're going to cut them in half primarily to use as walls, because I think that adds a lot of depth and texture. Just like this, you can just grab it, toss your inventory, toss that in there, and depending on where it is in the grid, it'll slice it into a different size piece, whether it's vertical, horizontal, left or right, top or bottom. And it works really well. Chisel Bits as a mod has a whole bunch of different options, though, way more than what we are going to use. It's almost truly excessive, because it lets you basically piece together your own unique sort of block pieces. And it's actually kind of interesting from that perspective. The next one we're going to do is another similarly named mod called Chisel. Chisel should be familiar to pretty much anyone who's played modded Minecraft at this point, because the main purpose is to take a block and add a bunch of different textures to it, like tons and tons of textures depending on the number of mod packs and the number of chisel supported blocks they have. But it just gives a ton of texturing options. We're probably going to use it to give slightly different textures to the blocks we're going to use, and to go from there. The next one is Blockcraftery, which is based off an old mod that I can't remember. It's like Architect something. But the whole point of it is you can just take basic, really cheap wood blocks to create a frame like this, and then you take another block and you slap it on it, and it gives it the texture of the block. It uses pretty much all the old vanilla pieces like fences and blocks and stairs and whatnot, but it actually works to create an interject. You just slap it on like that, and there you have a blue stone fence. Previously you didn't. It's really similar to ArchitectureCraft in a lot of ways, but it looks more like vanilla stuff for the most part. Now that we've got that, we should probably talk about what we're going to do for the build. So I'm going for like a rustic log cabin type look with spruce walls that are halfway thick with ironwood supports across the top and bottom, and then a fir wood floor. And you can see the different architecture, or not the architecture, the different chisels and bits, or the chisel textures I'm using here, so that you've got the vertical lines there, the solid line, and like nail boards for the floor. It just creates an interesting look. Now if we go around, you can see that I'm using like sandstone for the ceiling, both with a flat texture and for the roofing tiles, like a smaller block one. You can see on the window here, I've got an ironwood frame. That's from the ArchitectureCraft part, as well as is like orange window panes, because it only takes vanilla windows. I can't actually use any of the chisel tiles for that at all. Overall, I think this creates a nice recessed sort of look with a small frame poking out of it, because I use the half-size wall blocks there, and I feel like it just came out really, really well. So now that we've got this, well, we probably should get started on the build, and I will see you guys in a little while. This should take a bit. And now we have a base, everybody, and you might have noticed that it does not have a roof. And you're like, Ard, you said you were going to build the base this episode, and you're a liar. And yeah, I am. I got a little overly ambitious. This took me about 2 hours to do. So excuses made, it is what it is. I plan to do much greater things, like I plan to put a much larger second floor on this than the first floor and build out large balconies and an overhang over this area to be, you know, nice and pretty, and to give some outside workspace area to go as well. And we'll get that done over the next couple of episodes, just to get this built out and started. But let's go take a look at what I did, because if you noticed over here, you notice there's no smeltery and there's no chest monster anymore. And it's because I cleaned things up, because it was just disastrous. So let's go inside and take a look at what I did. So one of the first things I did was I built a pen for my little hammy ham right here, because he was just running around getting scared. He's also hungry and thirsty. Probably should feed him. But I'm a bad pet owner, guys. I don't know why you trust me with these things. That's on you. So I moved my decorative stuff down here. This right here is something I didn't have before. This is a framing table for making drawers pretty, which I'll show you what that means in a minute. I turned a bunch of chests into these, and I used these blocks to make them look different. I'm actually using red, which is a color I normally don't use in my builds because it's just not one of my go-tos, but I think it goes well with the colors of the building overall. So let's go downstairs and take a look at what I did down here. So you might have noticed I have storage, and lots of it. Drawers, chests, whatnot. This isn't even my permanent storage location. This is just where it happens to be well placed right now for uses. Like over here where these are big solid thick blocks with no windows, I plan to add an annex to the building. Basically a split level upstairs and downstairs that leads to a sub-basement to do a storage room in this big huge storage system in eventually. But I had to put stuff inside for now. I had to make it accessible and usable. The other thing I did was I shoved the smeltery and hid it inside the wall, so you can see it right here. And yeah, you can see the iron inside it if you look inside that carefully. Just this helps compact it and hide it a little bit. The tables that are the Tinker's Construct tables that are linked to it right here are down on the floor. I'm not actually a huge fan of doing this, but I needed to do it for aesthetic reasons to not cram up this area and just make it so I can just fall down the stairs and turn around and walk right into this and move the furnaces inside. So this made everything a little bit cleaner. I put up some tool racks. I used both types, this type, the Bibliocraft ones, and then this one, which is the Cooking for Blockheads ones. Mostly because these hold 4, these hold 2. These hold different things than those. Like I can put buckets here, I can put my charms here. But if I use a wrench on some of these, if I click the wrong way, it'll actually like pivot it if it's as a block, which isn't great. So different types of storage, different places to put them. That's all good. Over here, and what we're going to do in one of the next episodes, is probably shove a kitchen into this room, so I have places to cook and places to store food. That's what my intent for this room was. We'll see what I end up doing. I shouldn't do it pretty soon because I'm going to have to start dealing with my food issues. I built windows right here, but I'm also considering building a similar size room to this right here, and building a tower, and basically a square tower above that, overhanging this part of the building, going up a couple floors, just to break up this and make it a little more asymmetric instead of just being one big huge box like I normally build, because this is what this is right now. So that wasn't entirely ideal. Another thing I'm waffling on trying to decide if I want to do is if I want to panel over the central build area with glass so that the center part of this is usable and not just the outer edges of it. It's kind of functional this way. I think it might get crowded if I put things on top of it, but it's something I've done in the past and it works fairly well. So now that we've discussed that, let's go take a look at the crafting book and let's actually go, or the quest book, and let's go actually try to open up one of the gates. So I was thinking of opening up Industrialcraft because that will get us to basic ore doubling and some really useful basic machines to start with. To do that, we need to build the basic machine casing, which isn't that hard. It just consumes a ridiculous amount of iron, because these iron plates each use 8 ingots and they have to be made in the smeltery. So I've already made 3 of them, so I'm just going to do this to show you how it operates, just because in case you're not familiar with it. So as we did before, we already put a bunch of iron in the smeltery. It's already molten. I already made the cast for it using these tables. You can see the pieces are right there where I've made the actual part and then shoved it in here and then made the gold cast out of it. So just kick that out, dump the iron into it. You see it's going to take a little bit to do this, and it's going to take a little bit to actually firm up and cool down. So I'm going to go up here, I'm going to go use the bed real fast, hopefully. Oh wait, I already did it, it's already daytime. Oops. Run back down here, come stare at this. You see how it's progressing slowly. until that ticks up to 100, and as soon as that's done, we can pick it up. The other thing we need to do is make 4 aluminum plates. That will become a relatively cheap thing to do once we've got one of several different machines to make the plates. But until then, we have to use the engineer's hammer from Immersive Engineering to do so. So I already found one of these in a village thing. I didn't have to make one myself, so that makes this a bit easier. But to do this, it's just 2 ingots, and then a engineer's hammer, and then you can just make the plates. So now I have all of those and all of those, so I can just come in here, click this, click that to auto-complete it, and we have the quest finished. So now I can go into the quest book, and we've now got the gate open, and I'm going to take iron. I've got a bunch of rubber I'm going to be able to get pretty soon. I planted saplings outside, I'll show you that in a second. So I'm going to take the overclocker upgrades to speed up the machines when I've got them, because they're actually kind of a pain to make. So that's kind of one of those traps there. So come in here, and now I have Industrialcraft open, and I can start going through this quest book, starting with, here's Industrialcraft, and here's a loot chest. We'll go into the issues with Industrialcraft probably next episode, and how things are sometimes a pain in the butt, and how they're like kind of mitigated here, but we'll leave that alone for now. So let's just open that up, and let's see if we got anything interesting. And we got food. It's not the worst thing on the planet, especially decent food. So we'll come out here. I got these rubber saplings from across the water right over there in that jungle. That's completely has a ton of rubber trees. While doing so, I found something I haven't actually seen before, and we might as well go talk about something a little interesting for the last couple of minutes here. Down here, you see I have a box that's just labeled bees. Bees are actually kind of interesting, and there's apparently 4 types in this mod pack. There are the forestry bees, which are the ones most people, if they're familiar with any of the bees other than the vanilla ones, are most familiar with, which there's a whole bunch of different types. You breed them together, you make advanced types from them, they give you advanced honeycombs, and you can extract different materials from them. It's actually pretty interesting. I actually really like the bees. I'm not going to go into the details of them right now. This mod pack actually doesn't use them all that much, but we'll go show you how it works at a basic level in a second. The second type of bee are the Pam's Harvestcraft bees. These make honey and wax, and they pretty much are self-contained and pretty easy to do. I'll show you that too. The third one are the Rustic bees. Rustic bees, again, are pretty simple. They're really, once you start them off, they just start going. And they help increase the speed of crop growth, which makes them really useful to just plop right next to your farms, which you're going to need to do real soon, because I need to start not just making food, but making string. And the type I haven't run into before is the Animania bee nest, which is completely new to me. Animania is a kind of a neat mod, which has much more realistic animals for the most part. So let's go outside and let's start going through these real fast. So let's start with the forestry bees. So let's get a beehive out. Let's see. There's the bee house. Plop this down. So this is the most basic form of bee house for forestry bees. There's bee houses, there's apiaries, and there's I can't remember the name of the third one. It doesn't matter right now. It's a long time until I can build one. The bee house, basically, the bees don't ever die. You can just put them in. They'll go infinitely. They'll kick out. Honeycombs pretty much forever, and they'll be fine. Why is it claiming there's no flowers? Because there's the flower right next to it. Most of bees have to have flowers. Some advanced types of bees require very specific materials next to them, not just flowers. So they'll just passively make honeycombs over time. The second type are the Pam's Harvestcraft bees. So you need to make an apiary. So the important part about the apiary and Pam's Harvestcraft as a whole is that the apiary requires things that we physically found in villages, like item frames. So we'll drop this down, and these kind of just go as well. You put them in, they generate honeycombs and wax combs, and when they die, they replace themselves with another bee. To process their stuff, you need a presser, which is, again, pistons, which I said we got a lot of, so good that we already made them. So just slap that down for right now. We'll probably automate this in the next episode or two, just so I have a constant source of easy food. The other thing they make are grubs, which is a meat replacement, which makes them really useful for that. Let's see, still nothing there. Oh, it's nighttime now. The forestry bees are also super prone to daylight and night cycles too, and weather, and being in the correct biome. That's why I took basically the wintry ones. Also, we can't process the honeycombs from this yet. We need a centrifuge, and the centrifuge requires power. Let's see. So the rustic bees, you just, again, same sort of thing. Let me take this one over here, because I'm eventually going to plant crops over here probably. Just slap this down, and then put them in, and they just go. They will multiply in number and create honeycombs. Their honeycombs aren't all that useful. It just creates honey, which doesn't have all that much use. I might be able to turn it into fuel later, but I can't remember. I don't remember their byproducts being useful so much as just being a farm booster. And then, the one that I haven't seen before, and the one that I'm most interested in, are the Animania ones. So the Animania ones are actually one of the more interesting looking ones too. You just slap these down, and all of a sudden you have a whole bunch of bees. These guys slowly generate honey over time, and the honey can be eaten, and most Animania honey has special properties, or not honey, food has special properties to it. Usually instant health regen or stuff like that. There's an upgraded form that you can turn this into called the beehive, which generates food a little bit faster. You find these out in the... Ooh, and I got stung by a bee. I don't even know which one did that. Probably those ones. They look a bit like, we go in the book and we can see what this looks like. It looks like that. They're attached to trees and specific biomes. This one also only works in very specific biomes, things like jungles, marshes, and forests, which thankfully this is a snowy forest, it works here. But if I move a little bit over here to where it becomes a cold beach, it does not work anymore. Like, where does it flip over here somewhere? Because I tried putting it down in here when I was initially testing and it didn't work. Yeah, they're flipped over to cold beach. So, apparently I'm going to have to go move those beehives because they're going to just keep stinging me. So that's not great. Well, folks, as much fun as it is to sit here and play with the bees, I think it's time to call it a day. As always, I'm Ard, and have a good day.